It's time for the Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast.
Oh, indeed. I'm glad you connected. This is Dave Johnson, voice of the Washington Wizards. You have connected to the right place because you are listening to my man, Josh Kirby, on Sports Podcast.
Yes, indeed. Another edition of the Kirby on Sports Podcast is coming your way. Once again, if you don't know me, my name is right down below. I am Josh Kirby, the host and CEO of said podcast, the Kirby on Sports Podcast. And on today's episode, we will be discussing a Commanders loss to the Dallas Cowboys, mainly because I think Carlos wants to rag on how good the Cowboys are without Dak Prescott. Not really sure, but I'm not looking forward to bringing him in. He will be on in just a moment. Then the Kansas City Chiefs defeat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday night in the same stadium where Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat them in the Super Bowl. All that and so much more. But first, we would love to thank our sponsors. Without our sponsors, the Kirby on Sports Podcast would not be where it is today. PM Plus Reserves, Shenandoah Primitives, Mark Francis with Icon Real Estate, Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation, and Barrett Pest and Termite Services. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get into another edition of the Kirby on Sports Podcast. It comes your way right now. Once again, I'm Josh Kirby. This is the Kirby on Sports Podcast. Unfortunately, Dan cannot be with us today. We wish the weapon all the best, but we do have the Swiss Army knife, Carlos Martinez. Carlos, how about them Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys? Yeah. You know,
they're looking pretty good in that balanced offense, I'll say.
It's just another day in the office for Dallas beating up on Washington. It's like just tradition at this point.
Yeah, it's tradition, and it's tradition for the Commanders owner to show up wearing Cowboys colors too. Ain't that funny?
I don't care. I don't give a damn about Dan Snyder.
I mean, it was funny just to see. I mean, everything else aside.
What is he supposed to wear? Freaking a burgundy suit with a gold tie? Like, you guys don't necessarily have the best colors.
Well, I'm just
wear suit wise.
Well, I'm just saying you can wear gray, black.
Oh, he wore navy blue. That's like the typical suit you wear.
Yeah, navy blue and white. You can wear that anywhere else.
Khakis. White pants. All right, Kirby, you're making a big deal about, the owner's wearing the colors of the other team. Oh my God! Instead of talking about the fact that you guys have knockoff freaking Ravens jerseys that people thought looked more like the Steelers jerseys. You guys are unoriginal with your third jerseys. It's just like, man.
Well, I can get.
Okay. What were your thoughts on those jerseys though? Because it seemed like the jerseys got a lot of hate.
Well, to me, I don't really have a problem with them. I'm not going to say, they're stunning, they're glorious, my team's jerseys are better than yours. I'm not going to go out and say that. But I do think it's a unique look because the Washington franchise, Carlos, if you remember, they went from the Redskins to the football team to the Commanders. And
how could I forget?
But I'm just saying, usually tradition was burgundy and gold. So usually white or burgundy jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
So what for the first time in franchise history, wearing all black, it was a unique touch. And I understand where people are like saying, oh, these are knockoff Ravens uniforms. I could see that. You sent a picture in our group text, and I could see the similarities where people could get confused. I'm not sure why they did the lines on top and bottom of the name.
Yeah, I agree.
Does that make sense to you? It doesn't to me. I mean, you're in the graphic design business, and I'm sure if you were tasked to design a uniform,
But you see, that's not really graphic design. That's just design, right? That's fashion design, right? You know, because all in all, jerseys are fashion. But like for me, it's just like I didn't necessarily hate them, to be honest. Like I actually kind of thought it was a tough look. It's just I don't think it made sense for the team that it was on, right? I don't think it was like a good look for like because again, the Commanders' colors are burgundy, gold, and white, right? Where the heck does black fit in? And a lot of people, even people who said they went to the game, said that when they walked into the stadium, they were confused and they thought for a second that they were playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I mean, but
and I can get that too, because from far away, the numbers look like black and gold. And
yeah, but I mean, I guess the other thing would be is, you know, Pittsburgh's pants are yellow. So it's just like, how can you really get that confused? To me, it's more, you can akin them more to the Ravens, like all black jerseys, right? But to me, that's what they more look like than the Steelers look.
A little slight hint on the pants in the middle on the side of the pants is like a very dark camo as well. I'm not sure who came up with that, but I noticed that
Nike.
on the side.
Nike came up with it.
But I mean, it was all over social media. Like one DC beat writer tweets it, everybody tweets it. So the chain command, different angles, different players wearing the same uniform. So I'm not gonna knock it and say it's terrible. It's very unique. Being that the Commanders franchise has never worn black and they went out all black, but that also meant wearing all black. They wore black to their own funeral against the Dallas Cowboys as Cooper Rush maintains an undefeated streak as a starter for this Dallas Cowboys football team. And I'm not going to go out and say, Carlos, that Cooper Rush is a superstar, is an elite quarterback, but he is filling in very nicely for Mr. Dakota Prescott while he nurses his thumb back to health.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing what, you know, most teams hope the backup quarterback will do in the instance that your starter goes down. He's getting it done. I mean, he's not lighting it up, you know, he's not, you know, taking the world over like, you know, one Dak Prescott did when he took over for Tony Romo many moons ago. So, I mean, one thing I do got to address is this. Listen, if you're a Dallas fan and you're listening to this podcast right now, and you are in that band that's trying to convince the world that this team is better with Cooper Rush than with Dak Prescott, we need to stop that right now. Because, listen, this is Dak Prescott's team. I truly believe that if Dak Prescott was the starting quarterback right now, we would have demolished Washington by way more. We would have also beaten who else have we beaten? Right, the Giants by much more. Now the Cincinnati game, I feel like that came down. That was going to come down to the wire regardless, right? But yeah, no, I mean Dallas looked fantastic. I mean, apologies to the front office for completely ripping them after the first game because listen. It's
everybody
was doing it. Listen, especially after all that happened this offseason, all that had happened after, you know, with that playoff loss to San Francisco, you know, can you blame us? Like we just were. I mean, I'm necessarily saying I'm fully like I'm saying, oh, we're going to, like, I'm not there at the Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl because I don't think so. Right. I think I think another thing has been luck. There's been a lot of luck that has happened. Who would have known that, Tyler Smith, although he did play left tackle in college, he didn't do anything in training camp. And, losing Tyron Smith, early in the season, who would have known that this rookie was going to be like the guy, right? Like that's the superstar lineman that he's been so far. Who would have known that, that this I mean, I guess we would have known, but who would have known that this defense would be just playing at a very, like, just at this level that, like, I've never even seen before. Like, this defense is probably top 3 in the league right now. I mean, I can't really think of too many that would be up there with them. Tampa Bay just got, lit up by Kansas City. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I mean, the wide receivers are, welcome back, Michael Gallup, getting your first catch and then scoring a touchdown on your first game back after that nasty ACL injury. And the coaching staff, I mean, for the most part, I'm still not very high on Kellen Moore still, but Mike McCarthy has kind of turned me around also, like, in terms of, like, I don't know, he's kind of kept this ship together because, like, I mean, things were looking pretty gloom. So, like, yeah, like, and especially after losing Dak Prescott, I mean, I really did not think we would be sitting here at 3-1. I mean, I thought we maybe 2-2 at best. But I did not foresee 3-1. And, credit to Cooper Rush. I mean, he is 4-0 as a starter. 3-0 this season, 4-0 for his career as a starter.
Well, I'll say when Dak Prescott went out week 1 and the Cowboys just didn't look like they had anything in the tank Sunday night, week 1 against the Buccaneers, I know the Commanders fan base, they were like, oh my gosh, the Cowboys are going to lose all these games. Cowboys fans were dreading it, but you got Cooper Rush. He's undefeated, and Cooper Rush has weapons around him that he can utilize to his advantage. One I will point out, number 88, CD Lamb, and he can make a route into something more. And I felt he did that a lot with 97 receiving yards and a touchdown on 6 receptions. I mean, he's just one of those star wide receivers in the league that, I mean, he can pretty much do anything. He's versatile. He can make something happen.
I wouldn't necessarily go that far just yet. This is his first year as, wide receiver number 1. And he's had kind of a rough go these first few weeks. I think he figured it out a little bit on that second half of the Giants game is where it seems like it is the turnaround point. He had a good game here against Washington, of course, but prior to the second half against New York, I mean, he wasn't necessarily doing that much. I mean, he didn't really show up against Tampa Bay. He was not really that big of a factor against Cincinnati. So we all know CD's got talent, but I would say he's not like he's at like the bottom of the top tier, I guess you could say, right? He's still trying to work his way into being the number 1 guy for this offense. And we'll see how it goes from here.
I mean, I can say yes, CD looked good, but yet again, they were facing Washington's defense. So you can't really make a good sample size out of Washington's defense. Although they did play decent than the last 2 games from what I saw. But I mean, offensively, Dallas's defense tore them up. And I mean, Dallas's defense, the strong point from the start of the season, everybody's like, oh, Micah Parsons is going to, another year, he's going to get better. I mean, Dallas's defense, they're known to do great, and they've answered the call in some big ways, helping Dallas's offense convert, making sure defensively they hold the opponent, excuse me, I cannot speak, to 3 and out, getting their offense on the field to make more plays. Washington's O-line is decimated right now, and I believe they're looking at their fourth starting center due to injuries. That O-line shifting around is just not good. I know Sam Cosmi for the Commanders is out too, but with that O-line being out, it's causing a lot of pressure on quarterback Carson Wentz. So I'm not going to put all the blame here on Carson Wentz because the O-line is not protecting
but I would because ultimately
you can't say that.
Except I can, because in watching it, you know, there's a lot of Carson Wentz just makes too many boneheaded decisions, man, and it's not from a lack of, you know, sure, I agree with you, you know. The O-line, hold on. The O-line, of course, is very important. We saw, you know, prime example, even the best of them, Patrick Mahomes during that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay, his offensive line was completely decimated, and what happened? He couldn't do anything. But in the case of Carson Wentz, the reason why I can say this is because we have seen this trend from when he came back from the injury with the Eagles. You know, after the Super Bowl, you know, when he came back, he did not look the same. And it's just been consistently him making these boneheaded decisions, not making the right decisions. Just, I don't know, just bad quarterback play overall. You know, last year he's in Indianapolis, who has, you know, arguably one of the best lines in football right now. And he absolutely stunk the place up. And again, you can put a little blame on the you know, on the O-line in this case, but you got to also, but I think a bulk of this falls on Carson Wentz, man. He just had, I mean, he's getting paid all this money and just doesn't deliver.
Well, I will answer that with, I'm not going to put all the blame on Wentz because of the O-line, but if the O-line was spectacular, giving him time in the pocket, do we think he would have done better? No, I don't think so. Because we've seen the tape on this. So you can't put 100% of the offensive blame on Carson Wentz. You can put, I would quantify it as maybe 97.5, 98.5, because still that protection factor up front. But have you noticed, Carlos, that there have been not just Commanders, not just Cowboys, but all across the league, there have been an uptick in intentional grounding penalties. And I noticed I think 2 in the game between the Commanders and the Cowboys, because Carson Wentz was getting pressured, had to throw it away, and he was not outside the tackle box, not outside the pocket, and there was no receiver.
Well, one of them was outside of the tackle box. It just never reached the line of scrimmage.
Oh, yeah, that too.
So to me, it's just, I haven't necessarily noticed an uptick. I've just noticed maybe, at least in that game, for sure, it was called more because, like, it was just kind of blatant. Like, you know, I don't know, man. What did Washington give up for Carson Wentz again? Do you remember?
They gave up they took on his entire 100. What was it? 28 million? I forget.
It's like 30 million.
Yeah, something in the range of 30 million.
Yeah, they took on his entire contract. They didn't restructure it. They didn't re-sign him to a new deal. Like, they just took on his current deal.
In draft picks.
But what draft picks did they give up for him?
I think a 3rd and a 5th. If you give me a second, I can get the exact number. But I believe, excuse me, that the contract was not restructured. They just took on his entire cap, which hurt the Commanders. And it went to see there that it hurt. Some players had to get cut because of it. And being a fan, I didn't agree with it. But I mean, a lot of people are, I don't know. I just don't know with this Carson Wentz situation because every Monday after a loss, the coaches are like, I understand how frustrated this fan base is. And Ron Rivera was using some explicit language we will not repeat here on this podcast. But for the most part, yeah, media is asking questions about, do you hear the fans' frustration? And they say, we want to turn this around. We're going to turn this around. And the product is not being shown on the field.
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, it's more of like you guys took on a quarterback who has had this, recent streak of seasons where he just has been not good. And for some reason thought that you guys could fix him, right? It's kind of, I don't know if it, to me, I always thought from the jump it was a bad trade. I never liked the. I mean, I have not liked Carson Wentz as a quarterback for a couple seasons now. I actually enjoy watching him because he's like a car wreck. You can't look away. It's entertaining, but I can understand as a fan, as being a fan of a Carson Wentz led team, it's probably the most frustrating thing in the world because, again, this was a team who seemed to be on the up and up 2 years ago under Alex Smith. Of course, Alex Smith could barely move at that point because of his leg, right? It seemed like you guys were on the right path. Last season was kind of, a dud season. Also, Dallas just came onto the scene and exploded. And, you guys trusted in Taylor Heineke, who honestly is much better than Carson Wentz at this point, right?
At least you agree with me. Others don't.
I mean, to me, it's just like, okay, when the Carson Wentz trade happened,
in 2 third-round picks, by the way,
it was 2 third-round picks. Okay, correct. It wasn't the contract was more of the thing. At that point, Indianapolis was just trying to get rid of him because they just didn't like what they saw. To me, the fan base not you. I'm not saying you for instance, because you're a realist, but some, it was just like, it was like when we did our draft night live stream, right? We had that one guy who works there at Anthony's Pizza. Forgive me, I'm blanking on his name. He came, he talked for a little bit. He made me walk off set.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I remember.
He was sitting there trying to hype him, like trying to sell himself on Carson Wentz was going to lead you guys to a Super Bowl in the next 2 years. Obviously, a realistic fan like yourself knew that was not a possibility. The thing about Washington is that there's talent on this offense, right? Obviously, Scary Terry, Doxson has.
And why isn't he getting targets? Did you see that?
He has been an absolute home run of a pick, right?
Yeah.
Logan Thomas, didn't he just sign a big deal? He's barely being involved in this offense. You guys have you guys still have Samuel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, number 10. Yeah, you do.
He hasn't been getting used. He wasn't used as much this game, but
of course, how could he be used when Carson Wentz is just taking he's just like taking too long to even find these guys. Some of these guys were open and he just wasn't finding them. Carson, to me, and the other thing is Washington was running the ball. You guys were moving the ball on the run pretty well against our defense. And where did the mistakes happen? It was when Carson Wentz started to go away from that and start trying to take the game into his hands. You guys led at 1 point, 7-6. You guys had all the momentum, and then he just kept messing it up. Of course, there were some lucky calls in terms of, you guys had 2 picks that should have been picks, but of course ended up being penalties that, didn't, happen. But
if those weren't penalties, how would we be talking about this game? It might be a completely different result.
It might be completely different, but I mean, at the same time, it's not as if Dallas was running away with it offensively. We were struggling. We had our own offensive struggles, and eventually you guys just wore out. because at that point, Carson Wentz wasn't really helping your defense. And your defense, is, again, that front line without, and you guys don't even have Chase Young back yet, is a very formidable line, right? It rivals ours for sure. To me, it's just, I don't know, man. The other thing is I'm going to ask you, is it time for Ron Rivera to go?
It doesn't matter what I say, because myself and everybody else who covers this team knows that Ron Rivera is not going anywhere. And do you know why?
Why?
He's in charge. He's a big decision maker in that office. And for him to get fired, it's like him firing himself. That's
okay,
from what I've heard.
But it would be the same thing as Bill O'Brien. Remember, at one point, Bill O'Brien was completely the end all be all at the Texans franchise, and he still got fired. So that's not really a good excuse to me. To me, it's more of he can still get fired. He's not providing results here. Yeah. This team is not improving. It's not looking better. Are they just hoping that when Chase Young comes back, all of a sudden something's going to change? How does that change offensive play? When you're getting calls to get Sam Howell to get into the game and start, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I think
he's on a short leash. I'll say this. I don't think he gets fired midway through the season or anything like that. But there's a chance, if this Commanders team does not live up to the potential and start turning things around, whatever they need to do, I won't be surprised if something happens and Ron goes.
Yeah.
And if memory serves me correct, there was a game back when the Commanders were the Redskins. They whipped Cam Newton, the Carolina Panthers, and then the next morning, Ron Rivera got fired.
I mean, I'm gonna say yes because I don't remember.
I believe that is the case, that Ron Rivera got fired as a member of the Panthers when the Commanders, Redskins, whatever, beat them last. So, and then he comes over to the Commanders and they beat, who was it? The Panther? No, I'm sorry. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, they just went in and beat.
Regardless. I mean, the other question would be, okay, how much more leeway are you guys giving Carson Wentz in terms of how much longer until you have to bench him? Because clearly, sure, you guys beat Jacksonville, but you guys had to come back in that game, and it wasn't necessarily the best Carson Wentz performance. It almost was a complete disaster. He saved it somehow. Well, he saved it because, Scary Terry finally made an appearance. And then of course that embarrassing loss to the Lions, which you guys did eventually come back in the second half, but that first half was an absolute dumpster fire. This Cowboys game. And who else have y'all played?
The Eagles.
And then, getting completely beat down by the Eagles, which, I mean, so it's just like, how much more leeway do you give this guy? Because clearly he's not getting the job done. And do you put in Taylor Heineke or do you put in Sam Howell? What do you think?
It's got to be Heineke. Heineke knows this system. And I feel like if Carson were to get pulled, Taylor would be the best shot because he knows the system. He's won in the system. Heck, he's beat Tom Brady in the system. But I mean, that, I was just at that game. So, I always have to bring it up. But Sam Howell, from what I saw in preseason, yes, he looks good, but he's new. He doesn't know the system as well. When they might make the change, I don't know. I'm anybody's best guess here. I mean, if I had a crystal ball that would tell me, it'd be wonderful, but I just can't say for sure because I feel like with Ron Rivera and coaching staff, they're going to keep him in longer than he should be in when he's not producing and giving the team results, positive results.
And do you think it's because of the contract? Because they're paying the guy basically $30 million this year?
Probably so.
They're like, wait, we have to play him if we're going to pay him all this money.
Probably so. They took on his contract. And
I just still believe that, and I said this from after that playoff game, obviously, you got the key thing for me, for you guys, was you guys had to fix that run game. But the other thing I thought was, for this Washington franchise to succeed, they needed to draft a franchise quarterback. You didn't like the idea because you didn't believe that this coaching staff had the ability to develop such a guy, right? Which, you're kind of proven to be true a little bit. We haven't necessarily seen it, but given how their decisions on quarterbacks have gone so far, they stuck with, well, first they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick last season. Of course, unfortunately, he got hurt week 1. And then Heineke led you guys the rest of the way, but Heineke got you 7 games, right? Right now, Carson Wentz is looking like he's going to get you less. And I think it was kind of I don't know. The word arrogant keeps coming into my head, like an arrogant decision for them to think that they could take this quarterback and somehow turn him around when, his own offensive coordinator that, led him during his best season, who they were really close, couldn't do it. What made them think that I think that was just a very arrogant move of them to think that they had what it took to do that. I think Carson Wentz just is not a starting quarterback in the NFL anymore. I think he's just a broken, he's never really reached that MVP level play that he had that one season. And I think he's trying to chase that. And he wants to get back to that, but he just doesn't have it anymore. And I think for Washington, it might be time, because again, you guys have such great talent on this team. You guys have you got Terry McLaurin to resign. You can't waste this opportunity. Chase Young is eventually going to need a new contract, and the guess is probably going to be, that Washington wants to keep him around. There's not a lot of time left where you guys have the cap to really, do this with. I don't know. It to me, it's just it was a bad decision. You guys should have just drafted a quarterback and developed him. But at the same point, you might have been right too, that this coaching staff just isn't capable of doing such a thing.
I don't know. All in all, the Commanders and the fan base still not looking good. Mad at the coaching staff. Mad that the team's not performing well. Jonathan Allen went on the Sports Junkies on 106.7 The Fan and said, keep that same mentality when we start winning. And
when are you guys going to start winning?
I don't know. The players I can tell are frustrated from what I'm seeing, even though they don't show it. I can tell there's some frustration brewing. So if this keeps up, I'm not sure what I'm going to have to say about the Commanders in weeks to come. But Dallas 25, Washington 10. How would you like to wrap a bow up on this game for your Dallas Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys? We'll take a quick break. And Carlos, just for the record, is 2-0 this week as his Kansas City Chiefs.
I carried the podcast team. My team's carried the load. It's fine.
So the Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the same stadium where Tampa Bay beat them in the Super Bowl. We'll talk about that game next. Stay tuned. For sports fans living in condominium and homeowners associations, as well as business professionals, when you need a reserve study, PM Plus Reserves has been in business since 1990. Their studies are accurate and easy to understand. Check them out when your association needs a study. www.pmplusreserves.com. You can also contact them at 703-803-8436. Once again, www.pmplusreserves.com. Is it finally time to upgrade your home's interior? How about with an authentic farm table made locally from recycled barnwood? Shenandoah Primitives, based right here in Winchester, Virginia, makes farm tables, benches, tables, coffee tables, and a long list of other items for your home decorating needs. At Shenandoah Primitives, function and style are combined for great furniture that will last generations. If you're interested in combining the industrial look of metal with wood, or considering something incredibly unique with a live edge, Shenandoah Primitives turns those ideas into reality. Thinking about a mirror, wine rack, or other accent piece for your home, Shenandoah Primitives can assist with that as well. As a local small business, Shenandoah Primitives is happy to work with each client for a custom design or schedule an appointment to come out and view current inventory. Local, high-quality, handmade items can be found at Shenandoah Primitives. Find us on Facebook and Instagram or visit us at www.shenandoahprimitives.com. Once again, that's www.shenandoahprimitives.com. Welcome back to the Kirby on Sports podcast. Our next deep dive, the Kansas City Chiefs defeating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 41-31. Carlos, I'll start off by saying in this game, the scoring started really early because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the opening kickoff fumbles, and 2 plays later, Patrick Mahomes connects with Travis Kelce for a touchdown 46 seconds into the game. Tampa Bay then drove down to kick a field goal on the next drive where they actually got the football, but in Tom Brady's hands. The Chiefs looked like a very normal Chiefs team in this game. Obviously, Travis Kelce was getting used. Marquez Valdez-Scantling was getting used. Juju Smith-Schuster was getting used. Heck, Patrick Mahomes played with fate with the line of scrimmage and just pitched it to Edwards-Helaire for a touchdown. And yeah, I mean, it just looked like classic Chiefs football. And on the other side of the football, I mean, it looked like, I don't know, it didn't look like Tom Brady was 100%. And I'm not sure if Dan was like, because he said, Tom Brady's washed, I'm going to bed, or something along those lines. I'm like, I'm not sure if it's just this game or he just didn't look that good. Apparently, he did not practice as we are recording today with a shoulder and a hand injury. I believe I read that. But, I mean, all in all, the Chiefs looked fantastic. And the Buccaneers, I'm not really sure where to place the blame for this loss.
I mean, has a team ever fumbled the opening kickoff and won the game? I don't think that's ever really happened before. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was more of just the Chiefs were out here to make a statement. You know, they had that terrible, terrible game against the Colts, in which they should have won the game. Like, they were the much better team against the Colts. It's just, you know, things just didn't go that way, obviously, and the Colts ended up winning. So I think that they wanted to come out here Sunday Night Football and, you know, send a message to the league like, hey, like, we're still the Chiefs, you know? And for me, I mean, when you look at the stats, I mean, this offense is still the same offense, you know, that it was with Tyreek Hill, at least in terms of efficiency, in terms of, you know, just yardage and all that. They were still gaining the same amount of yardage as they did when they had Tyreek Hill last season. So realistically, the only thing that's different about this Chiefs offense is that Patrick Mahomes has to distribute the ball to more people, because now he just doesn't have the two-man army of, you know, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Now he has to give it to Juju Smith-Schuster. He has to give it to MVS. He has to give it to, you know, Mecole Hardman. Yeah. Yes, they have, you know, he's got to rely on his running game more, which looked very good against this Tampa Bay defense, who up until this game was one of the most dominant defenses in the NFL, and who I thought for a little bit there was the number one defense. They got completely lit up by Patrick Mahomes. And I also think, Patrick is going to have one of those years where he's trying to, remind everyone, hey, I know you guys are all high on Josh Allen up there in Buffalo, but don't forget, I beat him with 13 seconds left on the clock. Okay. Don't forget, I'm the guy who's been to 4 straight AFC championship games, in which one of them I beat this man. Okay. So to me, this is why the Chiefs are a scary team, because it feels like they have a chip on their shoulder. And yeah, I can't necessarily put any blame on Tampa, because Tampa Bay figured it out. They got into their rhythm a little later, and they were scoring. I mean, they scored. They only lost by 10. It's not as if they got completely wiped off the board here, right? Tom Brady had some great throws.
Yeah, he did.
So for Dan to say he's washed, I mean, sure, he's not obviously producing the same way we're used to Tom Brady producing. Obviously, we know there's a lot of stuff in the tabloids about his personal life.
I don't even feel like bringing that up. I just feel like that's
but that could also be affecting him too. We just don't know.
Yes,
we don't know. But yeah, Tom. I mean, he just, this is probably it. This is probably the last year for sure. And I just think, that the Kansas City Chiefs were just more up for this game than and also, Tampa Bay's whole week was weird with the hurricane and all that stuff, which of course our hearts and our support goes out to all the people of Florida who suffered from that hurricane. But yeah, I just think it was just a strange week for Tampa Bay, and it was just business as usual for Kansas City, where they just wanted to send a message.
Well, I think the Chiefs clearly sent a message. More game line for you. The second quarter with 8:50 left, Tom Brady fires a very nice strike to Mike Evans to shorten the lead 21-10. Then the next Bucs possession, Kansas City's defense comes up with a forced fumble off Tom Brady, and the Chiefs score off of that to make it 28-10 with 2:11 left in the second quarter. So, I mean, yeah, that fumble on the opening kickoff and the Brady fumble, it did not help the Buccaneers in this game. And
of course not. I mean, it's going to give extra possessions to the Chiefs.
And we all know the Chiefs are going to pounce on it. And it didn't really matter to me that the fourth down conversion that Edwards-Helaire should have caught, but didn't. I don't really think that mattered, because
obviously it didn't matter. The Chiefs won.
Yeah, I mean, they still looked red hot in this game. It was just a slight hiccup that they got over, just the one mistake I feel like the Chiefs made. 10 seconds left before halftime. There's a pass interference call by the Chiefs in the end zone. Brady connects to Mike Evans, the hot receiver of the night for the Buccaneers, to shorten the lead 28-17 going into halftime. But after that, it was pretty much all Chiefs, sort of back and forth, but the Buccaneers were sort of playing catch up for the third and fourth quarter. And I agree with you, though. I think the Chiefs came out and made a statement on Sunday Night Football that, hey, we're back in business and we're hoping to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're a month into the NFL season. I think the first 4 weeks are always just so crazy, because at that point, just anything can happen, and especially with the way preseason works now, a lot of teams are still working out the kinks. After about 4 weeks in, this is where the NFL starts to kind of level off, and we start to see who the real players are. I think this definitely proves that, Kansas City is going to be, for another year, they're going to be a real contender here, and we've seen how the AFC West has played out. It has not been as good as advertised, but the Chiefs have pretty much remained the class of that division, and again, I just feel like, we're 2 weeks away from the big game against Buffalo. They want to show that, hey, we're still the Chiefs. Like, you still have to fear us. We may not have Tyreek anymore, but that doesn't matter. We have Patrick Mahomes. We have Travis Kelce. And this Chiefs defense is very good.
I agree with that too.
Losing the Honey Badger, losing Ingram ultimately has not really affected them that much. I mean, they got 2 rookie cornerbacks, and Snead being one of them. And Snead is just an absolute animal out there. He was the one who surprised Brady on that blitz and caused that fumble. Brady did not see him coming, and for Brady to miss that is a big deal, because of course he's been doing this for so long, and he's the greatest of all time. And for Snead to be able to trick him and surprise him that way it's very rare. But they also did a great job at containing Tampa Bay's weapons. Obviously this was the first game since week 1 that they had Julio, that they had Godwin, that they had Mike Evans all back together, and they all contributed. But of course, at that point they were playing catch up. So yeah, man, for me, it's just Kansas City is they're getting themselves ready right now. Now they're starting to turn it up because they know they got the Buffalo game coming to. Obviously, they got Las Vegas next. They don't want to overlook Las Vegas, right? But they know that Buffalo game is looming, and it's coming. And then, in all honesty, this is probably just a collision course for them to meet in the playoffs at the same time too. They know that's probably who they're going to face at a certain point. So they gotta get things going now. That way they're ready for these for any clash with the Buffalo Bills that might be coming down the line, in the future. That way they're just ready for them.
I think if fate has it that the Chiefs and the Bills play again, it's going to be a spectacular game to watch. I will say that just
they are going to play again, of course, because they play in 2 weeks at Arrowhead, but we're talking about in the playoffs is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That if fate has it that they're going to, because it really does look like these two teams are on a collision course, right? That they're going to see each other in the playoffs at some point, whether it be the divisional, whether it be the conference championship. I doubt it would be in the wild card, just because I just don't see that happening. But whether it be in those 2 rounds, it looks like they're going to run into each other. So,
final stats from the Chiefs and Bucs game: Patrick Mahomes 23 for 37, 249 yards with 3 touchdowns and an interception. Tom Brady 39 for 52, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Clyde Edwards-Helaire 92 yards with a touchdown on 19 carries. Travis Kelce 9 for 92 yards and a touchdown as well. Evans went 8 for 103, 2 touchdown catches for the Buccaneers as well. One more name I'll just throw out there. Don't really know much about him, but Isaiah Pacheco. He looked very good running behind Edwards-Helaire when Edwards-Helaire needed a break. He had 11 carries for 63 yards in this game as well. But I've never heard of him, but it's like it's sort of reminds me of the next man up mentality.
Not really a next man up. He's a guy that has been heavily he's normally on special teams mostly. He's normally the kick returner, but obviously he wears number 10. Now that Tyreek's gone, he took number 10. It's just he's just a guy that they found in the draft that they were surprised they even got him. That he fell as far as he did, and they were glad that they got him, and clearly they're going to use him. And yeah, man, what a home run pick for them on him.
The Kansas City Chiefs 41 in the Bucs 31. There's much more to come right here on the Kirby on Sports podcast. That's Carlos. I'm Josh. We'll be right back.
Hey, sports fans. Thank you for listening to and supporting the Kirby on Sports podcast with founder and host Josh Kirby, along with lead contributor Dan Dembski. Like, subscribe, and give them a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast from. My name is Dr. Dave Miles, founder of Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation. Our company helps leaders build engaged and productive teams. Exclusively for listeners of the Kirby on Sports podcast, you can take an opportunity to discover your primary communication style and learn more about effective communication with others. Text Kirby to 757-903-0743 for your free copy of the Working From Home Communication Assessment, where you'll learn your primary communication style, how to better communicate with others not like you, and tips on working remotely based on your personal communication style. 10 minutes, tons of resources. Learn about yourself and your team. Again, text Kirby to 757-903-0743 for your free assessment report today. I'm Dr. Dave Miles, founder of Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation, where we help you and your team be more engaged and productive by understanding each other better. Back to you, Josh.
Welcome back. The Kirby on Sports podcast. It is that time in the show. It's the Hurry Up Offense, brought to you each and every week, all season long, by Barrett, Pest, and Termite Services.
You may have heard the saying, it's not if your home will get termites, it's when. At Barrett, Pest, and Termite Services, we're doing our best to refute that saying one home at a time. Our thorough inspections and treatments are designed to keep your home or business termite-free. Termites cause $5 billion in damages every year. A preemptive inspection is one of the best ways to keep that from happening to you. Because once you see evidence of termites with the naked eye, you can be sure they've already been at work for some time. Put a stop to termites and the damage they do by calling Barrett Pest and Termite Services 540-340-3922. Barrett Pest and Termite Services 540-340-3922.
All right, the Hurry Up Offense. Let's get this show on the road. Carlos Martinez, are you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. This one, yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but the Bengals and the Dolphins, and it's not really about the result of the game. It's more the fact that Tua was carted off. Thank God he's all right. But it's going into the NFL, the NFLPA, and their whole concussion thing. And was Tua let back in too early? An independent doctor was fired earlier this week after I forget what the exact term was, but I think he missed a lot of check marks or something, let Tua back into the Bills game that the Dolphins won. But all in all, hopefully nothing like this ever happens again.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully nothing like this ever happens again, because, I mean, listen, all in all, these guys want to play and they're going to do anything that, you know, that it takes to play. I think Rodney Harrison on Sunday Night Football, or whatever, Football Night in America, I think if you didn't see his whole speech that he gave about the dangers of like CTE and all that stuff, and like trying to play, you know, while, you know, concussed and all that stuff, and not letting these guys protect, like these doctors have to save these players from themselves, because of course they're brought up in the football culture of you gotta be out there no matter what to compete, right? And yeah, it just it's hard to see, man. You know, hopefully this thing shores up. It was very scary to watch live. And good thing they already claimed Tua was going to be out next week, because if he would have played Sunday, there would have been outrage.
Yeah. Hopefully he just rests up and gets to where he needs to be in order to come back and play football. But obviously in this game, after Tua went out, I mean, he threw an interception. Teddy came in. I mean, obviously it was the Bengals were the better team in this game.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the Bengals, I think, are starting to figure it out and are starting to kind of come back to the level that they were at, that we kind of expected them to be. And the Dolphins, I mean, yeah, they lost their starting quarterback. I think Teddy Bridgewater is a very good backup quarterback. I think the Dolphins will be just fine. But yeah, definitely, I think the main concern was at that point was Tua okay? And I think that kind of distracted the team a little bit and kind of took them out of the game.
The Bengals 27, the Dolphins 15. Let's travel across the pond. 9:30 in the morning, the Vikings defeat the Saints 28-25. A 61-yard double doink that does not go for the New Orleans Saints, and the Vikings win this game. The Vikings have been in a lot of close games so far this year, a trend that seems to stick with Minnesota, close games. And Kirk Cousins pulled it out. Kirk Cousins threw a touchdown and an interception in the game. Dalvin Cook had 76 yards on the ground as well. But obviously, Jameis Winston was hurt. So Andy Dalton threw 20 for 28, 236 yards and a touchdown. Jameis was on the side, but I mean, obviously it was reported that Jameis wasn't in London. So I fully expected, that Andy Dalton's probably going to get this start, and the Vikings defeat the Saints 28-25.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot to say. I mean, London games are so weird. They're just weird games in terms of, it's just weird things happen, man. And the double doink, I thought it was going to bounce in, and I thought that they had won it, but they didn't. And tough for the Saints, man. I mean, this was a team that a lot of people had possibly winning the AFC South, or I'm sorry, not the AFC, the NFC South. And here they are with another loss. And I don't know. I just don't really know about the Saints. The Vikings, it's kind of the same thing. They were a lot of people's dark horse, but they haven't necessarily impressed me since that Green Bay win, in which I wasn't necessarily even that impressed by that Green Bay win because of the fact that Green Bay always sucks week one. And right now Green Bay is looking pretty decent, but we'll talk about them in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, good on the Vikings. They figured it out.
Not to mention, Will Lutz nailed a 60-yard field goal earlier in that game. So 1 yard difference, double doinked. Once again, the Vikings 28, the Saints 25. The Browns and the Falcons go neck and neck in a barn burner as the Falcons get their second win of the season, 23-20 over the Cleveland Browns here. This game just went back and forth. I just think it was a game of two teams, rebuilding teams, and
two bad teams. One team waiting for Deshaun Watson to come back, in which case by the time he comes back, the season might be over for them. The hole might be too deep. I don't know, man. I don't really have a lot to say about this game except that, this was just two bad teams playing against each other. I was not really that invested in it.
Our thoughts and prayers go out to Dan Dembski as the Bills defeat the Ravens 23-20.
And I really wish he would be on the past couple weeks, because we go through your team, we've gone through my team, but Dan is running here. He doesn't want to face the truth about his team. Oh man, but tough loss for the Ravens. I saw a thing today that said that the Ravens in their two losses have only trailed for 14 seconds in both those losses. That's insane.
Wow.
Like in total, they only trailed for 14 seconds in both those games combined. And they should have won this game. To not score a single point in that second half is insane. And I understand, obviously, a lot of people complain about that fourth down play with Lamar Jackson and going for it. But obviously, analytically, it made sense, right? The analytics.
Yeah, Harbaugh said that too. It made sense analytically.
Analytically, it made sense. But I mean, at that point, man, make it tougher for the Bills, right? Because if you miss, it was the worst case scenario. it wasn't necessarily the worst thing happened on that play in which it was an interception in the end zone, right? Because then that made it a touchback. Had it just been an incompletion, they would have been on I think it was like the 4-yard line, right? That's where Buffalo would have to start. But they got bailed out and they got moved up 21 yards. So, yeah, for me, I just would have gone for the field goal. I would have just gone for the points, made it that Josh Allen needs a touch, or he needs a field goal to tie, and at least we have overtime and a touchdown to win. This Baltimore defense is absolutely atrocious. And for Buffalo, I mean, just another comeback win for Josh Allen, man.
The Bills 23, the Ravens 20, and I will agree the Ravens defense needs to get fixed and fixed fast. The Seahawks over the Lions 48-45. In the Lions, too, they're always in a bunch of close games.
Not even just a bunch of close games, a lot of high scoring. They are the number one scoring offense in the NFL, but they have the 32nd ranked scoring defense in the NFL. It's insane. It's so crazy. The Lions look so good offensively. It's all their losses have been because the other team has had to score way more points than them. They've been in it.
4 touchdowns.
Yeah, Goff has looked good. That Detroit offense is very explosive and is actually very scary. That sucks. That offensively they're getting it. Defensively, they're just not able to stop teams enough to get them to win.
Rashad Penny had 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. I feel like he just ran one off. Geno Smith threw for almost 330 yards through 2 touchdowns. So
who would have thought a month into the season Geno Smith would have a better QBR than Russell Wilson? Like, that is insanity.
Oh my.
Yeah, this Russell Wilson trade is not looking great for Denver.
Yeah, we'll get into
that. Talk about them. We'll talk about
that. The Chargers over the Texans 34-24. And technically, the Texans are not winless, but they're 0-3-1.
Yeah, I mean, we knew the Texans were. I mean, we knew that they weren't going to necessarily be good this year. But I mean, they gave the Chargers a run for their money there for a little bit. They were in it, and yeah, I were kind of worried about the Chargers because if you are struggling to put away the Texans, like you still got killers on your schedule, so it's just like, what are we doing here? But I mean, they got the job done. That's all that matters.
Chargers over the Texans 34-24. Herbert threw almost 400 and 2 touchdowns. Running game was not that good, but Mike Williams 120 receiving yards for the Chargers.
He's having himself one hell of a season.
Absolutely, I agree with you there. The Titans take care of business, defeating Indianapolis 24-17. Tannehill 137 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry 114 yards on the ground. And Matt Ryan, how do we think he's looking this season so far?
Old. He's looking old. Listen, Tony Romo kind of pointed out best during that Chiefs game. This is so new to him. He spent so long he spent his whole career, in Atlanta, to come to a totally new system, have to learn a whole new verbiage. Like, it's like learning a new language, man. He's still trying to figure things out. I just don't necessarily know how much you can put on him this year, because they're still trying to figure it out. But he hasn't necessarily looked the best. So, but I think he's still an upgrade from Carson Wentz.
The Giants over the Bears 20-12. The Giants look to be trending in the right direction here, but they are without. Or do you think it's just all luck there?
Listen, I don't say it's luck. They've won the games, right?
Saquon's looking good though.
Saquon is looking like the Saquon of old, the guy that we have been waiting, because he looked good his first year. He fell off. He tore his ACL, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that is true.
And he's been trying to come back from that, and finally it's looking like he's doing great. The only thing is for me about the Giants is I just don't, aside from Saquon, I don't think anybody else is really that great on that team. And I think they're
on their third string quarterback.
I mean, they lost to they lost to Daniel Jones, they lost to Tyrod Taylor, and they lost to Saquon, because Saquon ended up being the third string. I don't know. It's just like, who have they really beat? You know, they beat the Titans. Okay, they beat them week 1. Cool. They beat, I don't even remember who else they beat. Who else did they beat, Kirby?
The Bears.
The Bears, who just offensively are not a great team. I mean, that's just not a great team in general. They just don't, you know, Justin Fields just is struggling out there because he has nothing. I don't
remember who they beat. I'm blanking on that.
So but you see, there you go. It's just like, who have they really beat? They haven't had a memorable win in terms. I mean, their biggest test, you know, against the Cowboys, they completely, you know, pooped the bed. Like they didn't show up in that second half. Yeah, it's just, I think they're one of those teams that the schedule has kind of been a little favorable in the beginning, but we'll see what happens once they start facing the actual killers on their schedule. Who else did they play? Dang. Who did they play? Who else have they beaten?
Yeah, I'm wondering about that too. But the next game, while Carlos pulls that up, Doug Peterson returns.
No, hold on. The Panthers. The Panthers. You see the Panthers.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So you beat Tennessee week 1.
That's right.
You beat the Panthers, who after we'll get to the Panthers in a second. And then you beat Chicago. It's like, who have you really beaten? Well, I'm not jumping on this Giants hype train just yet, because when they face an actual good team in the Cowboys, you know, a formidable defense, they completely crumbled.
Yeah, I agree. So, Doug Peterson travels back to the place where he won a Super Bowl. The Jaguars faced the Eagles. It was a hard fight.
Well, not where he won the Super Bowl, but to the stadium where he coached the team to win a Super Bowl.
You get what I'm saying. You get the Jags were leading at one point in this game.
Mm-hmm. They were leading 14-0. Yeah,
at the end of the first, and then the Eagles score 20 unanswered. And the third quarter, no score, and then 7-9 in the fourth quarter. So high scoring first quarter, high scoring second quarter, but lopsided. The Jags won the first and the Eagles won the second. But in this game, I think the Jaguars are looking a lot better under Doug Peterson. I feel like they still have some kinks to work out, still slightly rebuilding, but a 2-2 record is very good for this Jaguars team. And
honestly, they should be 3-1, because they should have won that Washington game, but that's neither here nor there.
And the Eagles, they're the only undefeated team left in the NFC East, and they could be a problem for all of us.
For sure. I think the Eagles are looking very good. It's kind of the same thing with them, though. It's like, who have they really beat? They beat Washington. They beat Detroit. And they barely beat Detroit. And then they beat Minnesota. But I don't know, something about that team, though. They just look really good, and it's not. It's a different look from the Giants, where the Giants are kind of like barely winning these games, right? They're not like really imposing. Like the Eagles imposed their will on the Commanders. Like that was a beatdown of many beatdowns. And then in this game, to be down 14-0 and to turn it around and win 29-21, shows that this team has no quit. And the Jaguars are a well-coached team, like you said. And I think that I think they have a chance of actually winning the South because the AFC South is just not that good. There's really no dominant team.
I agree. I agree. There could be a shot.
And, shout out to the Philly fans for once for being respectful and actually cheering the man who brought you guys your first Super Bowl, who you have a statue built outside your stadium of.
And good old Jason Kelce took his coat as a souvenir after the game.
Yeah, that was actually a touching moment, actually.
Yeah, that was very cool. That was very cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think the Jaguars are on the right trajectory here. I think they're on the up and up. I think despite losing, I think they're still trending upwards. And the Eagles, I think, are obviously kind of eyeing towards that Dallas game in 2 weeks, where people are really going to be like, okay, well, I mean, obviously they got the Cardinals this week, but I think the big game that everybody's looking at is that Dallas game, just because it'll be interesting to see how that offense does against the Dallas defense.
I really do agree on that. It's Kenny Pickett time in Pittsburgh. It's Kenny Pickett time, but the Jets defeat him.
Yeah, but that's because Kenny Pickett didn't come in until later in the game, and his first pass was an interception.
It's obvious that Trubisky is not the answer in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Let's see how Kenny Pickett does.
Listen, my assessment on Mitch Trubisky is once again proven correct. I never understood why he was so highly touted in the draft that year. And the fact that he, again, look, we know the obviously all the stuff going on with Deshaun Watson, but just the player. Okay, we're talking about the player and his skill. I never understood why he was rated higher than Deshaun Watson, a guy who had been, winning at the highest level on the biggest stages, had just beaten Bama. And I just never really he had one good season in Chicago. They went 12-4, and then nothing. He just sucked from then on out. And then, of course, last season he goes to Buffalo. He sits behind Josh Allen for a year, and Brian Daboll was his offensive coordinator at the time. And I guess people kind of thought that was going to be like a case of maybe like what New Orleans was doing, where they with Jameis and what they did with Teddy for a little bit there. But I don't know, man. I just never really understood the Mitch Trubisky thing, to be honest. I don't know. I think this is probably the best move for the Steelers if they want to try to get something out of this season.
So Kenny Pickett added 3 more interceptions after Trubisky got benched. So obviously turnovers were a big factor in this game. In the Jets, Zach Wilson didn't have the best game. He threw 2 interceptions.
But it was also Zach Wilson's first game back.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I'm not that high on Zach Wilson either. So
that was his first game back. So I did forget about that. So thank you for pointing that out. But once again, the Steelers, I think this is their rebuilding year now.
For sure, they're in rebuild mode. They're for sure in rebuild mode, but it's kind of a case of Mike Tomlin is too good of a coach for them to end up with a losing record. So that's going to be the issue here, is if they're kind of hoping for a higher draft pick out of this, right? They're probably not going to get it. And the thing is it's not as if they have a bad team. They have great talent at wide receiver. Najee Harris is, a decent running back. It's just trying to figure out that quarterback position, because they've obviously had Big Ben to stabilize that position for so many years. But of course, the past couple of years, he's been a shell of himself. Now it's more of, okay, who's the next guy? And I think they were kind of hoping that they could make it with Mitch Trubisky, but clearly that just wasn't working out. There was really no energy to that offense with him as quarterback. And the thing is, Kenny Pickett, of course, played college in that stadium, so he's going to be used to playing there.
I agree with that as well. So the next game we're talking about, and I will be the first to say it, Matt Rule will be the first coach out.
What game are we talking about?
The Cardinals and the Panthers. Sorry. Matt Rule will be the first coach fired. That's my hot take.
That was a pathetic showing by the Panthers. That was pathetic.
26-16.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield did not look good in that game at all. And I saw something today where it was kind of pointing out that like Baker Mayfield just hasn't necessarily had like really any memorable game performance, to be honest. Like, I don't know. I would have to rewatch the thing that I watched, but they eloquently put it that Baker Mayfield just isn't a franchise changing guy. He's really not. And sure, he got, Cleveland to the playoffs and won them a playoff game. But aside from that, I mean, really there was nothing really there. Like, he didn't necessarily turn the franchise around the way that they hoped he would, is what I'm trying to go at.
I feel like the Panthers wanted Baker to do a lot more, and he hasn't really been living up to the potential that the Panthers ownership and coaches had in mind for him yet. That could change. We don't know. But as of right now, he's just not looking that good.
And hey, Cliff Kingsbury saving giving himself more of a lifeline, because I really thought he was going to be the first coach fired, but it really could be Matt Rule, because I mean, the Matt Rule experiment has just not worked. He's just one of those guys that his scheme probably works best in college, but it's just not a pro scheme. And I just don't think he really knows what he's doing right now. And I liked him when he coached at Baylor, but I just don't think this is working out.
I don't think so either. And that's why I said what I said there, because I feel like if there's any coach that gets fired before the season ends, it's got to be Matt Rule. Because there were so many expectations in Carolina. They brought back Cam Newton, and then after Baker Mayfield comes back, and they're just not looking good, and they got to turn things around fast.
Yeah.
How in the heck do the Packers take it in overtime and a third string quarterback for New England? And by the way, New England's probably screwed at this point, but
I don't think so.
But yeah, I'll ask you about that in a second. But I don't have any words, because it's Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, and it's the New England Patriots with Brian Hoyer. Then he gets injured for Bailey Zappi. So I don't really know what to say how this game got down to the final seconds of overtime.
Yeah, I don't really know either, to be honest. Obviously, you would think that with a third string quarterback, that Green Bay and it being in Green Bay, that the Packers would run away with this, but clearly Zappi just did what he needed to do. He had a couple good throws, but he wasn't going to win that thing in overtime, to be completely honest. And I mean, I think they had a 3-and-out in overtime. It was like immediately as soon as overtime started, they 3-and-outed, and it was just like, yeah, they just don't have it. But yeah, to your comment, I don't think New England's completely screwed.
Why do you say that? Because third string could. Well, I would imagine you will go to Bill Belichick and how good of a head.
Yeah, I mean, like, if any coach is going to get this team through it, it's Bill Belichick. I mean, we kind of brought up last time I was on 2 weeks ago, because I wasn't on last week, or was it last? Oh no, it was last time with Dan. I think it was that we brought up that maybe the Belichick era is done, but I don't know. He was into this game in a way that we hadn't seen. He
was yelling at the referee for
that's what I'm saying. Like, he was into it. So I think Belichick actually really likes this team. The question's going to be is when Mac Jones comes back, which Mac Jones? Are we seeing the Mac Jones from last year who played lights out, or are we seeing the Mac Jones that we've seen for the past few weeks where he's been a little timid. He hasn't really been the same. I think depending on which Mac Jones shows up, if it's the Mac Jones that plays like last year, I think this team has a shot to at least make some noise. But I don't think the Patriots are done just yet.
Yeah, I could agree with that, being that Bill Belichick is the head coach. But this was just a very weird game. I thought Green Bay could have done a lot more, but they got the win, and it came down to a game-winning field goal at the end of overtime. So 27-20 the Packers over the Patriots. The Raiders defeating Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. Yes, Carlos, that Russell Wilson trade is not looking good so far.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that they just lost their starting running back, I believe it was. The Broncos did?
Correct.
Yeah.
And going into a Thursday night game against the Colts, it's not looking good. And Jonathan Taylor's out for the game against the Colts too, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. I think he was ruled out as well. Yeah, he was ruled out today. So yeah, I mean, Russell, he just does not look. But I mean, this is the Russell Wilson that was like there last year at Seattle. Like he's just not the same Russell Wilson. He's just not. And that's why I wasn't necessarily that high on the trade. I thought obviously it's an upgrade, right? It was an upgrade from Drew Lock and from all the quarterbacks that they've gone through since Peyton Manning. And I think they were kind of hoping that he was going to come in and play like Peyton Manning did, right? You know, and light it up and be kind of reinvigorated. But I don't know. It's just not there. And I don't know if it's maybe kind of the same case of what's going on with Matt Ryan, where it's a new place, you know. But also, I just think I think the head coach of the Broncos, obviously he was the offensive coordinator there in Green Bay. I just don't think he's good. I just think he's made some really dumb decisions. And I don't know. I just don't know. To me, it's just this trade has definitely not gone the way the Broncos were hoping it was going to go, because offensively they just do not look great. Obviously, they also just lost Randy Gregory too due to injury. You know, of course, former Cowboy, and we wish him no, you know, and I got to also say this: any Cowboy fan that was celebrating him getting hurt, you're a scumbag. Because we should not wish ill will just because he decided not to resign with us, because ultimately it was for the best that he didn't resign with us, because we were able to free up some cap. But besides the point, yeah, for Denver, it's just not looking great. And for the Raiders, they finally got their first win. And, you know, McDaniels isn't on the hot seat anymore.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't think it's going to get better for the Broncos because of the injuries they have.
And they still got all the killers in front of them. They still have 2 games against the Chiefs. They still have 2 games against the Chargers, I believe. Yes. They still have another game against Las Vegas. It's just not looking good for the Broncos right now.
It isn't. Last but not least, Jimmy G and the 49ers crush the Rams in Santa Clara.
They had no answers for Debo. No answers for Debo. And Jimmy G is 7-0 against the Rams in the regular season.
But not the postseason where it really mattered.
I mean, he was close. I mean, it's not like they weren't in that game.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the 49ers just have the Rams number, and that's it. And the Rams, man, they are suffering hard from a Super Bowl hangover, because they just do not look like the same team from last year at all. Matthew Stafford does not look like the same quarterback from last year. And that's why I'm kind of like a little hopeful going into this Cowboys-Rams game. But yeah, Debo, man, what a special player he is. What a special player. And that 49ers defense is next level. They're up there with that Dallas defense for sure.
Yeah, I think it's Super Bowl hangover, but how quickly can the Rams get out of this? Because if it keeps going for an extended period of time and they can't get this ship figured out. I just don't know. I just can't put my finger on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, listen, every team seems to suffer from a Super Bowl hangover aside from Bill Belichick teams because that's Bill Belichick. It's just kind of they got to figure it out. Of course, also they did lose weapons, right? You know, they lost Odell, they lost Andrew Whitworth. Yeah, they lost key guys, leading into this, that helped them win the Super Bowl last year. So it's just an adjustment. They got to kind of lock back in. And, it's kind of hard to lock in when you've already been at the top of the mountain. And listen, chances are they're probably going to beat Dallas this week. They probably are. But it's just kind of a case of I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas somehow, wins this, considering the fact that the Rams just don't look like the Rams right now.
I agree. I do agree for sure. Once again, this has been the Hurry Up Offense, brought to you each and every week by Barrett, Pest, and Termite Services. We will be back to wrap up the show right after this.
Hey there, this is Mark Francis of Icon Real Estate. If you have any real estate needs in the Winchester surrounding area, including West Virginia, give me a call. I've got extensive experience, been in the business for almost 20 years, and would love to help you out. Track me down at Icon Real Estate, iconsells.com, or even give me a call, 540-247-1527. Again, Icon Sells, ICONSELLS.com, and I would love to chat with you and help you out. Give me a call.
We're back. That's Carlos. I'm Josh, and that wraps up another fun episode of the Kirby on Sports podcast. But we've been missing Dan a lot, Carlos. But yeah, I enjoyed chopping it up with you, buddy.
So we're gonna totally skip the what we're looking forward to this week segment again. Why do we keep?
I was getting to it
because you're basically saying goodbye, dude.
No,
why do you keep doing that? Just say, okay, let's get into the what are you like? You're basically saying goodbye.
I was going to say it's been a pleasure chopping it up with you, buddy. What are you looking out for week 5?
No. You got to work on your delivery a little. Your build up a little better. What are you looking forward to? Because I already know what I'm looking forward to.
Well, I will say that the Chiefs and the Raiders might be a game I'm tuned into. I know the Raiders aren't that good, but still, I'd like to see how the Chiefs handle a division opponent there. Man, I mean, these scheduling matchups, it's just Giants, Packers, maybe just that. No, that's in London. No, I'm sorry. And both those quarterbacks are injured. So,
yeah, I wouldn't look forward to that game.
I'll say Chiefs, Raiders.
That's a solid pick.
Yeah.
Because I, too, am looking forward to the Chiefs, Raiders. And not only because it is on Monday Night Football in prime time, Patrick Mahomes taking on Derek Carr and the top-heavy Las Vegas Raiders. I was about to call them the Oakland Raiders. But it is also because the Chiefs are about to get a W on the Swiss Army knife's birthday. So let's go.
Hey!
Let's go.
Hey! We're gonna be celebrating, Carlos. We'll have the whole party at your house.
Oh yeah, totally.
So that about wraps it up for the Kirby on Sports podcast. Carlos, as always, a pleasure chopping it up with you, my friend.
Yep.
That's the Swiss Army knife, Carlos Martinez.
You pointed the wrong direction.
I'm Josh. As always, you can find us on all social media platforms and all streaming platforms. www.kirbyonsports.com. Until the next time you hear us or see us, always remember to create greatness. And we say so long, and we say peace out.